I recently decided to go to Turkey, and no, thankfully not for a hair transplant. Naturally, I wanted to immerse myself in the culture, and what better way than through food? As it happens, my girlfriend is Turkish. I told her to get some tips from her relatives on healthy dishes we could cook together. She did no such thing. For reasons? So we had to hunt for recipes online. First thing that caught my eye was the pide. You're probably asking, but what is it? Well, it's kinda like pizza if pizza had none of the same toppings, no sauce, and was shaped like a bolt.
My grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike.
Since this dish is basically Turkish pizza, we'd have to make dough. And since I've never baked a thing in my life, welcome to My Girlfriend Can't Cook Pide. You'd think picking a recipe would be the hard part, but no, that was just the beginning. With both of us being on that health grind, we decided to make the dish with whole wheat dough instead of regular.
Which apparently is illegal in Turkey, because no one has ever made a whole wheat pide. So we had to wing it with a pizza dough recipe. I'm probably committing food treason, but here we are.
So far so good, except my girlfriend doesn't own a kitchen scale, so we had no way of measuring the flour. I had to trust ChatGPT to convert grams to milliliters. Big mistake, but more on that later. For now, here's the ingredient list. We start by asking ChatGPT how much 420 grams of flour is in milliliters. It said 710. Either the recipe was off or the bot was lying, because 710 ml wasn't even close. My girlfriend measures the flour and pours it into a bowl. In another bowl, she mixes warm water, honey and yeast. And lets it rest 10 minutes until foamy, like so.
Oh, this looks disgusting. Then I pour in the oil, salt, and start adding flour bit by bit while mixing.
Once all the flour's in, it's clear this dough is way too sticky. So, in my role as supportive boyfriend, I dust flour onto her hands and the dough. Repeat 3 times until it finally behaves. Once it's time for the dough to leave the bowl, I dust the counter.
And I get to kneading, which is just me beating up the dough until it stops fighting back.
Once she's done kneading, she gives the dough a few hesitant pokes and taps.
Lewis! Mom! Mommy! Mama! Ma!
If it bounces back, then that means it's ready to rest. The bowl gets oiled.
I hate oil on my hands.
Okay. Wanna put your hands here?
No.
Dough goes in, covered with cling film and a towel. After 30 minutes, the towel comes off and it's left to rest in the fridge overnight. Well, it's a new dawn, it's a new day, and it's time to stop before I get a copyright strike. Before we start doing anything else, we take the dough out from the fridge so it can sit at room temperature while we prep the toppings. We heat a pan, pour in 2 tablespoons of water, and break up the mince. If you decide to go by the original recipe, you can leave the mince raw and cook it in the oven, but since supermarket meat isn't the most reliable thing in this country, we cook it twice.
I toss in the salt, cumin, cinnamon, paprika, chili flakes, and mix it all like my life depends on it.
Parsley gets picked off the stem and chopped. As finely as possible with her knives. Don't judge, she's new and the knives are awful. I've cut myself like 30 times just making breakfast. Once the parsley is off the stem, it gets chucked in a bowl along with the mince. She deseeds, roughly cuts a tomato and purees it using a food processor. Unfortunately, it turns out a bit too watery, which is not ideal, but it will have to do. The pepper also gets deseeded, also gets roughly chopped, and gets turned into small chunks using a food processor. Except it doesn't. It's also too watery now. Time for the onion. It gets peeled, it gets cut, and by some miracle, it actually ends up being in chunks. All the veg gets added to the bowl and mixed by hand. Now for the dough, and oh boy was that an adventure. Once the surface is dusted, my girlfriend dumps the dough on the counter and kneads it for a bit in order to give it some shape. In the process, she gives it a few good spanks because who wouldn't? And finally, she cuts it into 4 roughly equal pieces. Using a rolling pin, the first piece gets stretched out into a thin oval shape, or at least an oval's distant cousin. The not oval gets topped with the mince mixture and the edges of the dough get folded in. But thanks to the pureed veg, the mix is too wet. As we found out, thin dough plus wet filling equals disaster. After several minutes of wrestling with the dough, I finally give up and cut it in half. One of the halves managed to survive the relocation, however, the second was not as fortunate. We scrape off the filling, salvage the dough, and after more flour, plus a mini breakdown.
Are you laughing or are you crying? I can't really tell at this point. Or both. I think it's both. Okay, both.
She gets it into a proper oval shape. Lesson learned, build the rest directly on the oven tray to avoid similar tragedies. Once assembled, my girlfriend brushes their tops with some egg wash and shoves them into a preheated oven for 15 minutes at 250 degrees. Honestly, despite everything, the first batch didn't turn out too bad. But I kinda forgot to film them coming out of the oven, so instead, here's some footage of my girlfriend making the second pide. And look at it coming out of the oven.
It's enough to make a grown man cry.
With the mince ones done, it's cheese and sausage time.
Hi, it's me again. I grate the cheese, slice the sucuk into circles, roll out the dough, throw everything on top, and in the oven it goes. 15 minutes later, it comes out looking bubbly and delicious.
To finish off the night, she makes 2 small ones, one with sucuk and cheese and one with mince and cheese. The whole thing took like 5 hours, by the way. Partly because we could only bake one at a time, partly because she'd never made anything like this, and partly because we effed up a few times. But at the end of the day, it was delicious, and that's all that matters. So, on a scale from to
Yummers.
I'd give it a...
It was perfect. Perfect.
Thank you all for watching. Leave a comment down below to convince my girlfriend that she should keep cooking for me.
And we'll see you in a bit.